consistency is the most important thing. Yeah. And I don't mean that in like do the same thing again and again, but like keep posting, keep making stuff, just keep putting things out there. Because the moment that you stop, you're no longer in people's minds, you're no longer in people's algorithms, you're gonna just disappear. So even if it is shit, put it out there, I think, especially for starting off.
Welcome to Nothing Something Nothing. We are here with producer, director, Alex Rodrigues.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
To the blank page.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in an acid dream right now.
You didn't wear white?
No, close.
Close?
Yeah.
Firstly, I just want to kind of just kick off, I suppose, just with a background on yourself, where you're at right now, and just early kind of thoughts on how you got there, I suppose.
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I'm a producer director. My current job title at Channel 4 is video producer. I work with original programming strictly in the digital space. So we work on digital original stuff for Channel 4, digital extension stuff, which is basically like programming that supports the traditional like linear shows, you know. If you're doing Bake Off, we'll do like spin-off Bake Off thing or whatever. And then some kind of like marketing assets and stuff like that as well. But outside of that, I like to think of myself as a bit of a like kind of maybe holistic filmmaker, storyteller.
That holistic filmmaker, storyteller, when did you first figure that might be something that you want to take forward into like a career almost?
I came to Bristol to do a philosophy degree, right?
Okay.
And I was like, I'm going to be a philosopher. I'm going to fucking change
ideas.
the world. Yeah, I've got ideas. And then I realized that everyone that we were studying either was mentally ill, had addiction problems, or killed themselves. And I was like, I don't know if this is if these are the people I need to be looking at. So I started doing other stuff alongside university, and I got into music. I started doing events and stuff in Bristol, and kind of got this group of people around me that we were doing events with, and then slowly we formed a record label. And through that, I realized like actually the skills that I have amassed through years being a kid, making stuff in Photoshop, making videos at school or whatever. Actually, I can turn those skills into making like music videos and content for artists, and then ultimately started working with artists outside the label. Was doing stuff with Idols, then went and worked at Warner Music and was working with a bunch of their artists to make like to tell their stories in a way that music doesn't or can't. And then through that, I was like, oh, TV and content is like the natural progression. There's more money in it than music. You know, I had a child to feed, so it's time to make some money. And that's kind of how I ended up telling stories online through this kind of zigzag of like music videos, music content, and then TV.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. What do you think that music's like really informed, or that journey into music has really informed like your approach now?
It's a really good question. I think people, some of the best songs tell stories, right? They give you insight into the artist. People's, big artists especially, their core fans, they don't care about, the singles on the album. They care about those tracks that kind of tell you more about them and their story. And content does the same thing. Like films do the same thing. Anything on your socials can do that same thing. And so I think for me, it was learning that true fans of people and true audiences are built through or the authentic stories that you tell outside of like the mainstream singles. And if you take that into how we tell stories about ourselves in content, you can see a lot of traction and a lot of things working when you're just authentically yourself. And that's what people really want, People would love to see. I always think if Michael Jackson was around, people would love to see what he was like, what content Michael Jackson was making. But there's an era of superstars that were kind of shrouded in mystery that now doesn't exist, because everyone is online making stuff. And so you can get so much more about them, and people really buy into those people,
That's so true. It's like, I guess that your brand is so important as a musician now. Like anything that you're putting out, irrespective of the music, it is anything that's out there visually.
Yeah.
How does that affect your storytelling of your brand or your business or of your musicality?
Yeah.
It's so ingrained, whereas before you didn't need to have. So I mean, just take like Charlie XCX, I suppose. Like the Brat was just,
Yeah. That's just genius marketing, isn't it? As well,
it is genius marketing. I wonder, like, what with things like that, the occurrence of like such a strong kind of brand asset that is associated with an album.
Yeah.
How that was born, I suppose.
And in the other vein, you've got people like Paolo Nutini who just disappear, come back, do an album. Everyone's like, holy shit, Paolo Nutini's back. And then they just absorb his stuff and then he disappears again.
Yeah.
That's the type of artist I think you really want to be. The one who isn't hounded in the street, the one who can kind of disappear. But unfortunately, not everyone can be Paolo Nutini, especially if you're just starting out. So like your content and your output and your catalog are the most important things to building audiences, aren't they?
Yeah. No, for sure. So music was a bit of a Kickstarter, I suppose, and it transcends into what you do now. What is the kind of beating heart, I suppose, of what you do now in your job at Channel 4 on a day-to-day?
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think my experience as a digital producer is probably quite different to most people working at different companies or production companies or indies or whatever, because our sole focus really is to shift the Channel 4 audience from linear to digital, right? So it's like taking all the things people know Channel 4 for and moving them into a digital audience, digital platforms, which a lot of people think is just targeting youngs. It's not, My mum's on YouTube. My mum's sending me Mr. Beast videos. It's just about taking the language and the kind of like texture of traditional television and passing that through a digital lens that speaks to audiences authentically. That is the core of my job. I think, if you're a producer at Lad Bible or someone, you don't have those same problems. Mm-hmm. And I call them problems because, yes, that is a problem and that's my job, is to solve that problem. But it's also a really exciting way to work because it's I love challenges. It's just an interesting challenge to take on. Ultimately, how do you save a dying industry? Let's work it out. That's kind of how I see my job. Okay. Yeah. But also, TV isn't dying; it's just changing.
Yeah.
And I am, and my team and my company are, I think, leading the charge in that, which is exciting. It's kind of exciting to be at the heart of that.
Yeah. No. How is Channel 4 leading the charge in that, would you say?
So Channel 4 is positioning itself as the UK's first digital public service broadcaster. And that's kind of a lot of buzzwords, but effectively it just means like, how do we make public service content on digital channels and just really lead that charge? The BBC is now trying it as well, and ITV and Channel 5 are also doing that. But Channel 4 was the first one to go, right, look, we can see this shift into digital. Let's jump on it. And I think it's really important, because audiences are so fragmented. Mm-hmm. Especially young audiences. They are consuming so many different things. There's so much division, the whole Andrew Tate situation, there's lots of radicalization. And the answer to all of that is public service content. Mm-hmm. But the problem is public service content is not purpose-built for algorithms and for hitting the number one in the recommended in your For You page. So trying to like retrofit the values of public service content into what does well on platforms is a very difficult thing. But Channel 4 is like one of the only companies really, really pushing it. And I think that's quite exciting,
How do you stop the scroll of content? Stop it so it's something is retained in our audience's mind to watch later or to engage with. There's so much that's being produced and created at the moment. How do you do that?
There's lots of different ways. People often think you want to stand out, and to a certain extent you do. But the way that I always like to think of it is humans are built to be hunter-gatherers, right? Yeah. We are built to walk through the woods and pick berries that we know are familiar and stay away from things that we have not tried before. That mindset is ingrained into us as human beings. Digital platforms, I think they know that. I think they understand how we consume and how we go to things that are safe. So if you are making content that is so drastically different from everything else out there, there is a chance that it scares people away and audiences go, no, I don't like this, it's too different. Let's go to something I know that is safe, right? And that creatively probably sounds quite boring, but once you hook them in with something interesting but familiar, then you can subvert that and change that. Hot Ones, I guess, is a good example. It's the example I always use because it's like one of the biggest shows on the internet, and it's just an interview format. Everyone knows that, but then they get you with spicy wings. But it's like, okay, audiences understand an interview format. They didn't necessarily understand the elevating levels of the Scoville units, but you combine that all together and it's like, okay, now this is a new and interesting thing. So to answer your question about stopping the scroll, I think if you can be familiar but try something new, that is a successful way to do it. So there's a thing called the regret test that there's a really great creator called Jay Klaus, and he talks about how if an audience regrets consuming your piece of content, you failed, right? If you've made something and someone has gone, that is a waste of my time, they are never going to come back. The bar for the regret test is very low, but people still struggle to hit it. I see it a lot. And I you might have an amazing idea, but your execution of it is really bad. And I have just regretted wasting my time watching that because you're not providing any value. So like that is the lowest bar of how you keep audiences coming back. There's a second element of retention that is, how do you keep an audience engaged in one specific piece of content? And people often think about all these like retention hacks and like fast-paced editing. It's none of that. It's simple storytelling. Open a loop and don't close it until the end, or close it midway and reopen another loop, right? It is basic storytelling. You just want people to ask questions, right? From your packaging to your first 30 seconds. If you're not opening a question that your audience needs to then close themselves by watching a piece of content, it's not gonna do well. And that this isn't some sort of like hacky, like scientific thing. It is like the fundamentals of telling a good story.
Telling a story.
Yeah.
Narrative first. Like,
Exactly.
what is your arc going to be?
Yeah.
What's your opening? Is there a midpoint here? Where is the conflict? And then what's the resolution?
Exactly.
And don't just lay it out. Let your audience just work that out
Yes.
for themselves.
And it doesn't have to be a 3-act structure. Like that is the oldest format, which is great. But it can be as simple as 10 hot wings and you know the 10th one is going to be really spicy. Or actually the way that Hot Ones do it is the 8th one is the hottest one. And so there's something really interesting there because you're watching to get to the 8th wing. And actually by the time you're there, you then want to finish and do the 10. But you're already watching 80% of the content. So that as a metric for YouTube is your average view duration is incredible.
Yeah.
They do it in a really interesting way.
Hot Ones is a format that you can understand relatively quickly, right? And it's quite familiar, like you said. But creators, I suppose, producers even, what format should we be thinking about at the moment to stop the scroll and then retain the attention? What's interesting about format right now?
I used to not be a fan of format, right? I used to think that the world that you were building as a creator is more important than format. And to some degree, I think that's still true. But I think that's because I was looking at it from a linear TV perspective of what traditional formats are. Now, all a format is the consistent, repeated delivery of value. And it isn't, this like, this thing has to happen, and then this thing has to happen, and then there's a twist. That is like a traditional idea format. If you as a content creator, was a producer, was a marketer, can produce something consistently that delivers the same value, but in a unique and interesting way every time, that is just your format, right? So you don't have to think about format beats per se. You don't have to think about interesting devices. You can. I'm a development brain at heart. I love thinking of like developing formats. It's like the funnest part of my job. But most of those formats don't go anywhere because actually they might be falling down at delivering value. And as soon as you can consistently do that, and it could be as simple as asking a question at the start and then going in a bit of a convoluted way to close that question. That is simple, you know? There's a really great tech creator called Cleo Abrams who does like really positive tech news. And her format is called Huge If True. And her format is just like, here's a thing that might scare you, like global warming or vaccines or whatever it is. And here's all the positive things about that. It's super simple. And it's just her talking to the camera and then maybe sometimes going out into the world and experimenting with things.
But what's interesting about that is that she might not have set out to make a certain format. That's the way she wants to translate what she wants to communicate. It's not like, I'm going to do it in this way. It's kind of like freeing ourselves a format and just letting like the innate creativity come out, knowing that the audience will buy into it. It doesn't need to be a certain way.
Yes.
To a point.
Your value is your format, right? Like what you know and what your expertise is, that is interesting enough. Like if it is an interesting area and if you know it well enough, then you can just talk about it. And if you do that consistently and repeatedly, people will keep coming back because if they are engaged in that thing. And it can be anything. It can be really niche. I saw a creator the other day that just talks about plant fertilizers. I think he's a farmer. And he gets like thousands of views because it's all just like people that might share a bit of a common interest in fertilizer or just find it interesting. Yeah. Or there's a girl I saw that she does like, she explains like science concepts but just by singing them. And I saw one the other day, it was about like water storage or something. It's just like she understands that. She can sing well.
It's like digital has freed herself a format in a way.
Yeah.
Because imagine like you're trying to pitch to legacy television, legacy broadcasters. I've got this show about plant fertilizer.
Yes.
And like, it's going to be massive. Yeah. It's going to get like millions of views, you know?
Yeah.
It just wouldn't happen.
Yeah. The Career Ladder, according to them, is the biggest non-animation show on the planet. It gets 600 million views a month, right? If you went to a traditional broadcast and went, I've got a show where one guy is standing on a ladder and he invites other people to stand on the ladder and talk about what their job is, you would get nowhere. Like that's an absolutely stupid, silly idea that no one with any format development experience would say is good, but it is good. It kind of defies all conventions of like, of what we as traditional TV people know as format. And we need to learn from that because it's so simple and it works, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. It's very freeing in some ways.
Yeah.
We spoke a little bit about stopping the scroll there, and I think we'll get onto maybe attention in a little bit more detail maybe in a bit. But how are you feeling about long form content generally at the moment and the space that it's in?
What are you defining as long form?
Well, that's a good question itself, I suppose, nowadays.
Because some people would say that a 15-minute TikTok, because I think it goes up to 15 minutes now, it could be considered long form. Some people would say a 25-minute YouTube video is not long form, right? So I think there's a lot of like how you would define it. Yeah. I personally define long form as anything that isn't a vertical short form cut down. So if it's not on Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, I would consider that long form. Maybe it should be 16:9 aspect ratio. Doesn't necessarily have to be. But long form, I think, is the best way to build a brand and to like ultimately, if you want to monetize that brand, long form is is what sells and how you sell. But short form is how you discover. So the way that platforms are built is that audiences discover you through short form, and then it's your job to convert them into your long form that you can then, if you want to, sell a product, sell a course, or get them into your content ecosystem. But that's if you're looking at it from a business point of view. If you're looking at it from a creative point of view, short form is challenging but exciting. Long form is where you can flex all your creative muscles.
Is there any examples of anywhere or anything that you've noticed that's doing both really well?
Kareem, I forget his last name, but everyone will know him from Subway Takes. He did Subway Takes, started off as a short form thing, and then they started uploading the full length interviews onto YouTube. And I think it's now the third biggest podcast on Spotify, because they just started with a really simple format of what's your take, and then really interesting, funny, exciting people talking about batshit ideas on a subway in New York. And then they've just extrapolated that. You know, they're filming all that content anyway. Why not put the long, uncut version on YouTube? And clearly audiences love the short form. They go, okay, great, let's watch the long form. And, you know, Kareem has built, I'm sure he has earned so much money from all those formats. He's brilliant at it. He has a really interesting one called Keep the Meter Running, which I think is like such a great example of like value-led public service digital content, even though he's not, you know, he doesn't need to be public service. It's just like, let's highlight immigrant stories in New York and do it through like food and culture and all this kind of stuff. That's pretty cool.
That's cool.
So the way that they have managed to do it, I think is really great. And I think the guy behind all that stuff is Adam Faze. I might be wrong, but I think he manages Kareem, and he clearly has a very interesting like approach to that is working, you know.
Okay. Do you think long form is still inaccessible if you don't have the short form behind it? Does it need that pairing to enable accessibility?
It's so much harder. The skills required and that kind of like the exponential knowledge in how you create stuff for long form is almost impenetrable if you have no experience and background doing it. Some people get success very quickly, but I think the average is like, it takes 3 years to get 1 million subscribers on YouTube if you're posting constantly. A lot of people don't have that time to commit to it. That's like the people that are doing it well.
Yeah.
So most people, if you are just, you know, say you do pottery, right? So you've got a small pottery business and you want to make content to sell your pottery, you're not going to do long form, but you can really easily do short form with that. And that is where you can start. And like maybe later as you grow, you can get into short form. But like, I think most people shouldn't start there. It's too much of an investment. It's too hard to get right. Where short form, you can just keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep putting things out. That's where I would tell people to start. Yeah.
Thinking about themes, if you are a creator and you've got something maybe original, what's kind of palatable at the moment? What are we kind of into? Do we have to be controversial? What should be in our toolkit if we're going to start something new at the moment?
Fundamentally, anything that provides value, right? Anything that your audience can leave and go, I have either learned something, or I've either learned something about myself or new skills or something interesting, I think is like the fundamentals of where you start. And that can be anything. That can be like tutorials, that can be explainer videos, that could just be a funny comedy skit that teaches you something about the human experience. And that is not specific to digital content. That is basically specific to anything that has ever been successful and been consumed by people. But the reason that digital content or content generally is very well built for that is because, you know, to use the analogy of hunter-gatherers earlier, we're constantly being fed stuff. If you can feed your audience with ideas or content that helps them feel better about themselves, or you interact emotionally, or you make them laugh, or you make them cry, or you make them think, like you're onto a winner. You're just going to be successful. But on the contrast, I think if you make them feel bad, and if there's negativity, and if you're controversial, that can equally be as successful. I like to persuade people against that kind of stuff because, again, I work for a public service broadcaster, and I think even if I didn't, my values are like, let's try and make the world a better place because of the content we're making. But you can be an Andrew Tate, you can be who's that guy? HS TikTok. I don't know if you've seen that guy.
Nah,
he's like a lightweight Andrew Tate.
A lightweight Andrew Tate.
Yeah, which is like, that's probably the nicest thing I would say about him.
These lightweight Andrew Tate.
God,
Brilliant.
If his fan base see this, they're probably going to start sending me death threats.
Yeah.
But like you could be those type of people, and if that's how you choose to spend your life, that's up to you. You got free will at the end of the day. Yeah. But like, if you're making something that makes people feel better about themselves and teaches them something, like that's where to start, right?
Okay. Yeah, no, for sure. You've got this idea, what's important about production value or not important about production value, and your approach to that. What's important now that maybe it wasn't a few years ago in relation to like creators, influencers, presenters, professionals. We can take that apart a little bit.
So I often say that production value doesn't matter, but that is because, and this has never changed, right? In the same way that you as a director and a DOP will try and use the best tool to solve your problem, it's the same on digital. And most of the time, the best tool to solve your problem is a phone. It's not an Arri 35 or whatever. It's like the things that you have access to tell the story that you want to tell. And to tell it authentically and organically. Most of the time, that solution is whatever's in your pocket. Or, I've got a Sony FX3, like just, if you've got the money to buy a $3,000 camera or whatever, use that, cool. Cause like you might get better dynamic range and you might be able to cover your shots in a more interesting way. But most people don't care about that. Right. You might care about that and I might care about that, but your audience doesn't. So like if to make your piece of content, the thing that will get you to go and do it is your phone, just do it. Don't put barriers up. Don't say, oh, I haven't got the right equipment, or I need this light, or I need this. No, you don't. You've got the best light in the world, the sun. Go out and just shoot it when it's not dark. And like that's the fact that you're doing it, I think is better than them trying to put gear barriers in front of yourself, right?
Yeah. Well, it is still always what's the best tool for the job.
Yeah.
We might have like 20K camera, 50K camera like in the kit store, and it might just be there, but it's not the right thing for the job.
I see so many big productions using the Ronin, is it 3D? Is that the one?
Yeah, the 4D.
4D, yeah. And I just think like, that is people going, this is a cool camera, let's try it out. But actually it's so multi-faceted. It has so many applications that like, that's why you kind of see it everywhere now.
Yeah.
Because often that is becoming like one of the best tools for the job. But equally, you could put an iPhone and a gimbal and it would probably do a similar thing for specific use cases, right?
Yeah. Gear and production value comes as a huge debate and talking point in relation to the budget that you have based on what you want to get out of it. It's a little bit of a troublesome thing when you may have invested in a team to such a point because they've come from films, they've got their degree, they're like, this is what I'm passionate about, and for their whole career, it's always been really equally as important. And that shift is affecting production companies a little bit.
I
and they need to do something, adapt to and be agile with it. But it definitely is a factor.
There are often very, very good reasons to use a Steadicam operator. And I want every Steadicam operator out there to work until they cannot work anymore. Like that is what we all want.
Of course.
But the brutally honest truth is that there is obviously less need now for Steadicams than there was even 5 years ago. And that is a real shame. And I don't know how you can both create kind of low cost, high volume content that does well and that has brand, that brands want to work with and talent want to work with, etc. And also at the same time, protect these very, very highly skilled, sometimes very expensive freelancers. Those two things are not necessarily always compatible. And that sucks. Like, I would love to get a Steadicam operator on everything I do because I love Steadicam. I think it's great. Obviously, a lot of the times it's just not the right thing to do, but it'd be great if, especially those people that are my friends or those people in the kind of like communities around me that could work on every project, that would be great. But it's just not the way the industry is right now.
Yeah.
I said this earlier, right? It's not that TV is dying or that film is dying. There's more money now being spent by brands in the media space than ever before, but it's changed.
Yeah.
And there is a convergence happening. You see like Beast Games, Mr. Beast show, I think like had the most cameras on any production ever. And he was is a YouTuber. There's a convergence happening. I think you're going to start to see YouTubers using more high production values because they can and they would like to, and that's a fun thing to do. So that thing is happening, but like because the industry is shifting, like you guys as business owners have to kind of shift as well. And I mean, you're doing the right thing. Like this, I know this is not necessarily a kind of marketing play, but it is a good thing to do if you own a business and you have facilities to do it, because the more you put out there, the more business you will drive in, is the idea.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Even though I know that's not a priority, it's like it can still work, right?
Yeah, of course. She mentioned YouTubers there, and I think the secondary part of my question was about the personalities and characters that are in front of the screen. What is important, I suppose, for, I guess, broadcasters, but still digital, using influencers, creators to front their projects, their originals, their ideas? Do we need something else right now? And where are we at with like the traditional presenter?
Yeah. I think we are coming towards the end of the influencer creator talent bubble, because I think audiences respond far better to authentic individuals that know a subject matter well and can talk about it, or are just good at a thing, rather than your kind of like traditional generic presenter talent. There is still scope for that, and I think brands still like to use those types of people, but they're I think audiences are more likely to respond positively to human beings that are authentic to themselves. And that might be counter to what a lot of people think and a lot of brands think, but I think it's happening, you know? Look at Sean Evans, right? The Hot Ones host. He's not like your traditional presenter talent. Before Hot Ones, he was like making like videos for Complex where he'd smoke weed and go and work in a bodega for a day or whatever. Like, you know, he was just a bit of a journalist, producer type person. Yeah. He's very good at doing Hot Ones. I saw a few clips from his they did a big Shiny Floor show, which is a bit like Family Feud, I think, but Hot Ones. He wasn't good in that, right? But the reason I'm saying this is like, he's just a really authentic human being. Beard Meets Food. I don't know if you know that guy, but he gets millions of views just doing food challenges. He's not a presenter. He's like funny and eloquent and is good at eating stuff. These are the types of people that brands should be working with, and that if you are someone like him, you should be starting your own thing, because you're good at something and you're like interesting to watch. You're not like this kind of generic pop talent. Yeah. I think less of that is there's going to be less opportunities in that space.
Followed like Top Draw quite a lot.
Yeah,
and you know, Jesse from Top Draw, they started doing 48 hours in, that sort of content. That was their sort of format, if you like. And now I think he's just got a Netflix show coming out.
Yeah, it's a Ramsey Apple TV show, I think.
Apple TV, sorry. About it's trying to obtain Michelin star, right? The journey to trying to obtain him, and he's fronting that. So.
And that is a testament to the audience that he's built. It's a testament to Studio Ramsey acknowledging that like this guy is killing it. Or I think it's the two of them, isn't it? Yeah. And these people are, you know, killing it in the food content space.
It's almost saying that Ramsey needs someone like that, whereas before he obviously clearly didn't.
I mean, Gordon Ramsay doesn't need anyone other than Gordon Ramsay, but it's interesting that they are future-proof in their business by doing that. Yeah. And that is probably the way to go, because you are capitalizing on the audiences that creators have built. Whether or not those audiences go to these other platforms, I don't know. They're not seeing
a question on that. Is that like not for them?
It's so tricky. Yeah. It's like if you, I imagine people are massive fans of Top Draw, like that, you know, they are their number one thing that they consume. Those people, I'm sure, would probably pay the $6.99 or whatever it is a month to watch that content on Apple TV. How many of those people are there? I don't know.
And would they be expecting the same experience?
It fundamentally has to be it's a different experience. It has to be, And do they find it weird? Do they find it weird seeing him in an experience outside of normal Top Draw content? I probably would.
And that might remove them from Top Draw.
It might be alienating.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Beast Games has done it well because it is just Mr. Beast content on Amazon Prime. But he's Mr. Beast. Yeah. No one can say no to him. And he can do whatever he wants. I don't think Amazon released the figures, but the show did really well and it's got a second season. That is great. Also, Amazon are not necessarily focused on just viewing figures. They have a bigger business. So if you're driving young people to then buy things on Amazon, that is great for them. Apple, similarly, their main business is not the media business. So like, there are different priorities of why they're doing it. Someone like Netflix, they're doing Inside with the Sidemen, and it was the biggest show for, I think, like a number of weeks on Netflix. Clearly it is working. Is it sustainable? I don't know. Will audiences get tired? I don't know. It's good to see that they're trying it. But I think ultimately pounds are probably better spent on YouTube or on the platforms where their audience already is, and then bringing them in. But again, I'm not a business person. I'm not the financial controllers at Netflix. So I don't know what figures they're bringing in, right?
Sure. What you do have is a cool newsletter called The Audience Sucks.
Yes.
Where a lot of this stuff, I think that we're talking about today, you kind of write really eloquently in that. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, where people can find it, and what's within it, I suppose?
The name, I don't know how much I've explained the name, because I just kind of thought it is a cool name and it strikes a chord with people.
It does. It's like, what does it mean?
Yeah. But it basically, it started, and actually similarly to how I talked about humans being hunter-gatherers, it started in a conversation with, I was having breakfast with Ali McRae, who's a brilliant colleague of mine, and Daniel Preston, who's another brilliant colleague of mine at Channel 4. And we were talking about how audiences no longer like go and find content. They are like just like hoovering it up. And Daniel Preston was like, yeah, like, you know, audiences don't watch, they suck. And I was like, the audience sucks. Like, that is a great name. Because I wanted to start a newsletter and I didn't really had a name for it or whatever. And I was like, oh, the audience sucks is a brilliant name. So credit to Daniel Preston to like giving me that idea for the name. And then ultimately what I wanted it to be was a bit of a like tongue-in-cheek, like disgruntled producer talking about the industry and the industry changing. And I kind of started off at that, but I started off doing that. But as I realized more and more people were coming to me, asking me how they can make content better or start making content, or like, you know, any hacks or tips and tricks. And I realized that actually the value that all the stuff that I've learned at Channel 4 and at Warner and at BBC and Red Bull and all the stuff, that has positioned me in a way that I have insight to give to people. And I just want to help as many people do that as possible. A lot of people start newsletters because they want to like build a business and like make a course and do all that stuff. I don't want to do that stuff. I just want to provide value to people so that I can help them in a time where people are struggling with businesses, with ideas, all that kind of stuff. And the more that I can do that, I think the better the industry becomes. Sure. So while the name might be a little bit pessimistic, I actually want it to be an optimistic platform for people to learn and engage with each other and start conversations.
Yeah,
right?
That definitely comes across when you read it. For
okay,
sure.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. What are you talking a little about a mission statement there? But what would be like a really a great result that comes from doing that project for you?
It would be someone going, I have, you know, because of your newsletter, I've been able to quit my job and go full-time making content or whatever it is. That, because ultimately that is what I think most people should be doing, right? Is like just starting their own thing and doing it. Most people don't know where to start. So if I can help people do that from the fortunate position that I'm in, like, great. You know, I've had people email me, sending me their stuff and going, how do I improve this? And I take the time and sit down and write to them. They go and they action it and they instantly see results. That's so nice for me to know that I'm helping these people. I've done workshop. I did a workshop last week about that, and a couple of the people had subscribed to the newsletter and come to the workshop because of the newsletter. And then I was just able to kind of help them more hands-on. That's cool, great, you know? Like, I really enjoy that.
Yeah, that's great. And as creators, we're so pessimistic. there's so much doubt. It's sometimes really difficult, despite maybe you might have a great idea to just be like, oh no, this makes sense for me. This is going to work. I'm going to give it a go. And anyone that's offering a little supportive arm, it's great. It's great for the industry.
There's so much competition and negativity and gatekeeping.
Yeah.
I just want to break all that stuff down. Like, I don't have time for any of that. So.
Yeah. For sure. But what do you hope the next generation of creative kind of holds on to, and what do you possibly hope they leave behind?
Are we just talking about in my world or generally?
Generally.
Yeah.
And if you want to identify your world a little bit, then great. But
I would love to see a world where we are making the world a better place because we are making stuff. I think historically speaking, that kind of has worked. Like, if you look at hip hop and jazz and punk and all these genres that came from communities that were misrepresented or had their voice taken away, that is like art doing a great thing at its best form. I would like to think that happens more and more. I would like to think that through technological advancements and through democratization of media, you are getting you're getting like BAFTA and Emmy and Oscar winners from countries and communities that you've never seen before. You are getting industries and businesses popping up in places that you've never seen them before. That's a really good thing for humanity. And I think we can absolutely get to that place because now everyone can make stuff. And ultimately doing that to guide positive social change is great. I see people like Zoran Mamdani and Zach Polanski using content and creativity to shift political discourse. Great, Cool, Nigel Farage is doing the same thing, and whether you agree with him or not, you can understand that these people are engaging in art and creativity in a certain way to help further their agendas, and that's cool. We can do that to share information and inform and educate in a really positive way, and that's exciting, right?
Amazing. We spoke a little bit about this off camera before. We got a traditional sign-off method here on Nothing Something Nothing. We've got one nothing, one something, one nothing. So we'll just see what comes out, shall we?
Okay, cool.
Alex?
Yeah.
So in a space where nothing exists, what one thing would you bring with you?
I would probably bring memories of my daughter, I think. They are...
That's sweet.
It's like that's the best experiences I've ever had is just like, seeing her try new things or having fun and just that. So if there's nothing and I can just have that, those are wholly positive experiences. And that,
How old's your daughter?
She will be 4 in December. She's at a perfect mischievous age. It's just lovely.
Is she creative?
I think so. She'll draw something, she'll show it to me and I'll have to go, oh, that's really amazing. And it's just some lines on a piece of paper. But look, it's avant-garde art, isn't it? It's postmodernism, yeah.
All right, lovely. That's a really sweet answer. What's the something that's never been created that really should be?
Has smell-o-vision ever been created?
That's a good question.
I was watching Parts Unknown the other day and I was like, imagine if we could just smell these experiences. Like, we have so much...
immersive experiences are they're really popular right now.
Yeah, like if VR had like something you can put in your nose and you could smell, I think that'd be quite cool. Is that a right answer?
I think there's no right or wrong in this one, mate.
Right.
It's fully diverse and totally original. So,
come on, Elon, make us some smell-o-vision.
Smell-o-vision. Yeah. Smell-o-vision. Here we go. And if you had to begin from nothing, where would you start or what would you do differently?
I'd like to, I don't know. I've done this. If I had another life, maybe I'd be a monk or something.
Yeah?
Have no issues, no problems in the world, just sit at the top of a mountain, breathing and thinking about the world.
You could still do that.
I could still do that, yeah.
It's not something that's not off the table for you.
Guys, maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I feel like this is a perfect environment to be a monk, isn't it?
Alex Rodrigues, thank you very much for coming in and chatting to me. It's been really great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. Cut.